Good evening. It's December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. Never forget. That's what happens when you don't watch your borders. But we got idiots running the White House. But today, I take you back in time. We're coming up on 2 years this spring. If you watch my last show on the commission where I catch Mac and the lawyer and they're all up there lying to the commission about what's going on, and they pass a development even though they know they're in substantial noncompliance. Remember, Mac and them did not review letters from 2007 to 2009 to 2014 because they said Dr. Harper was going to decide if they were valid. They were. The county adopted that report in 2018. That means since 2007, the issue of drainage has laid before the planning department, and the can has not just been kicked down the road, it was kicked out of the stadium. And that's still what's going on, and I'm going to prove that to you by taking you back in time. We'll start March 9th, 2021, with Commissioner Barker telling them that they've had a problem for far too long. And listen to what they're going to do and how long it's going to take them to get an answer, and that realize as of December of 2023, they've done none of this. And without further ado, roll back through time of we didn't do shit. Here we go on the Alan Osborne Show.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Commissioner Barker.
Yes, sir. I'd like to restate, and I'll put this in the form of a motion. The last board meeting, I brought up Driftwood Estates having an independent investigation into the water, and I'll attach a scope of work to that, an independent investigation.
Just remember, they've already done this before. Dr. Harper was the independent investigation, and they hired him in 2015, and they've had his report since then.
Open investigation into the water standards is currently being used in Sandestin DRI, and as that relates to Driftwood Estates, scope of work would be to see what the water standards are, what they should be for that area, what's being used currently now, so we'll know that if we're doing anything that we should.
We don't need an investigation to what's being currently now. They already have Harper's report saying they're direct piping into the bay in some of the county right-of-way at 0% retention. And for planning purposes, they're using a half-inch LDC standard inside the DRI, which they know they can't do. So they're only meeting about 10% of what they're required. They know what they're doing. They're just trying to find out, is that the right one? So go on, Mike.
Shouldn't be, then we'll know that, and if we're doing the right thing, we'll know that. So to be able to clarify that once again in an understandable format, and I will put that.
We have a format that says you're using the wrong standard. I don't know what other format you need. You don't need to know why you're using the wrong standard. You're commissioners. You just need to know that you're using the wrong standard. But go ahead.
In the form of a motion.
Second, but would you amend that motion to grant the power to hire that investigator, Mr. Adkisson?
Absolutely, I would amend my motion to that.
Second, for the amended motion.
We got a motion. And
I'm sorry, just to step in. So, I mean, if it meets certain thresholds, we're going to have to bid it out, certain purchasing thresholds. So that would.
Now, Clay has already told Danny and the board in his hiring process in a previous meeting that he's conflicted with Sandestin. So dumbass Danny wants right off the bat to have Clay hire somebody to investigate it. What for? All he's got to do is read the engineer's report, which is now by this point gone to the Florida Board of Engineers and come back in 2020 saying, yes, the county was using the wrong standard. Why do you need an investigator by somebody Clay hires?
Need to be understood.
Do we need to modify?
I don't think, well, you can just, we could modify the motion to say we'll stay below that standard. And if we don't
need to stay below the standard, do we?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we follow our competitive procurement policies.
Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine with Mr. Barber.
Following proper procedures and bidding things like that out. Yes.
Yes.
And this motion is to quality of water. Is that what it is?
Quality of water, water drainage standards,
Stormwater standard.
stormwater standards.
We had a firm do that 2 years ago. Give us back a report 2 years ago.
That's right. Tony goes, a firm. We hired a guy and gave him a fortune. He got surveys, he did calculations and charts, and he came and briefed the commission, and y'all adopted it. That was Dr. Harper. Good job, Tony. You remembered something.
It took them 40 forevers to do it. And, you know, are we going to do one every year or what?
I've read that. I've read a magistrate hearing where it was done, and both of them were kind of confusing. I've read them numerous times, and to me, they were still confusing after as many times I read them. I would think that we would put some timeline on that to get that done, and I would think we could do that. And whatever we send out to put.
Timeline. The county got put on notice formally in 2007.
The timeline on it, that they have to do it. I wouldn't think that it would take that long to do that, just me thinking. I would think they'd be able to get that done in a timely manner. But I think we could find out what a time would be and then put that on there.
A couple of months.
I can't imagine why they couldn't do it in a couple of months.
I can't imagine why they couldn't do it in a couple months. Here we are in a couple of years, and the only thing we've done so far is stick our thumb out, make a fist, and drive our thumb up our ass and waste the taxpayers' money and possibly approve 5 or 6 major developments. And listen later to what they say about that. Oh, there's no new major developments coming. Well, they never checked out the standard, and how many has the BCC voted for? And Clay just let them.
Okay. Go ahead.
So we could put that in the scope.
All right. Are you good with that, Commissioner Mahorn?
No, I didn't know if they was going to modify it again. Never mind.
If we need to put it in the motion.
You put it in the motion?
We put it in, I'll amend the motion to put it in there for a 60-day turnaround in there.
Okay.
I'll amend the second.
Second. Got a motion, second?
Now I have one discussion.
Go ahead.
I am completely unclear on what water standard we need to be using down in Driftwood Estates, also in the area of North Sandestin. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on how we got here, but where we're at today for me personally is I don't have the confidence that I'm making the right decisions on what's going on down there, but the unclarity or the water standards. So, with that said, and if there's not a legal challenge on this, would
I think that's what we're talking about.
okay, look, all right, let me rephrase my question. Is there anything legally binding me for not making a motion or making a motion that we do not issue any more development orders in that area till we get a standard? Just yes.
Mr. McCormick, and Mr. Atkinson can come forward, but for you to,
Let's be clear on what's going on. Boots has had the law sent to him by me. The quote tells him what the law is. You don't issue any permits or services if it's in substantial non-compliance. Boots says he doesn't know what the standard is. He doesn't think we should be issuing any more permits. But what have we done? We've done just that. And so, Boots, you're the chairman now. But continue on. Boots wants a moratorium. and the conflicted attorney Clay and the attorney leaving this shit show, Sydney, say pending litigation. We can't enforce the law. Now look at Trey. He does not know what to do, and Tony's reading his phone looking for instructions. Everybody continue.
Moratorium on development. We've not noticed that. We've not provided notice
It's
to
not on your
property owners that would be affected. It's not on the
You don't have to notice non-compliance. You can issue, your code enforcement department should have issued a notice of non-compliance and called the state and asked them to issue a notice of violation. But your crooked people attorneys in the past do not want the state to step in and stop it, because that would stop whose pockets it lines. But y'all continue, attorneys. You were doing what you were supposed to, Boots, but you never did it.
There's some case law that suggested that it's best done by ordinance. Most counties that do any type of moratorium have to follow the ordinance. So because it's not on your agenda and it's not listed as an ordinance for adoption.
They already have an ordinance and it's in violation. Why don't you just tell the commissioners to vote that the current ordinance is in violation, Clay, but you and Sydney don't want that. You don't want the truth out.
And it has gone to the advertisement and the 2 public hearings that would likely be required based on the scope of the area. I don't believe you could do that tonight, Commissioner.
So we have to advertise a non-compliance finding by the BCC. Bullshit.
Okay.
And I'll certainly be glad to get with you and discuss what that process would look like if you would like to bring that back at a future meeting.
We can have that discussion. So what do I do now? Where do I know if I'm still under an umbrella of protection here on any decisions or any type of development in that area? If I don't have a clarity or I don't understand where that umbrella's at, I don't know if I'm under it or not. So what do I do to get convinced that I'm working with the right water standard or stormwater drainage systems and stuff like that from this day forward? Because from this day forward, my name is on it, and I don't want to be adding to a...
Yeah, you don't know what the water standard, and for 2 years you haven't, Boots, and your name's all over it, damn right. And I'm looking at you. Why did people issue permits all around my house, flood me out, and then sue me for it because you guys lied? That's right, Carrot Top sued you too, the BCC and me, for y'all's lie. Both of you. You conspired. Some people in your staff conspired with him, but you won't investigate it. Continue, Boots. Yeah, that's right. You don't know, and you still don't know almost 2 years later. You should all vote tomorrow at the next meeting that 8909 is in violation unless somebody proves it's not with a different drainage standard and some minutes showing where y'all changed it. But you ain't got those. Continue, Boots.
I need to be adding to a problem. So with me at this crossroad, I'll ask you as legal, what do we do here to answer my question here, or to give me confidence? Because if I'm not confident in my decision, I'm not going to be able to get other people confident in things. So how do I get confidence I'm working
If it
on it
helps,
right?
I don't think we have any major development orders in the Sandusky DRI, so there really should be nothing coming to this board in the next few months.
Well,
No, but in the next couple of years, how many hotels have y'all approved? High rises, you name it. You know, you got a traffic problem too. She just said, oh no, we'll find this out before any major developments. Hadn't there been like 7 or 8 or 9 and 8 more condominiums approved above 50 feet? More bullshit. Continue on, lawyers.
Yeah, well, there's another part of this too. It's not just the major issues, the major development orders that come for us. What about somebody building a house out there? How do we know?
This board isn't involved in the review of single-family homes.
so let me say that.
Let me put it this way: if being done under this county name, in the long run, it ends up on my shoulders to bear with.
That's right. Boots knows it right from the get-go, but then he was talked into a bunch of crap by his worshiping of Clay and Danny and other people. But somewhere in the back of his mind, the part of him that might have been a cop is going, now wait a minute, I can't just knowingly break the law. But he's going to let some lawyers talk him into it for another 2 years. He's already known it 7, 8, 9 months, maybe a year at this point. And he's trying to tell them, aren't we doing the wrong thing? And they're trying to talk him out of it, and they do.
You can sit there and say, all those other people making decisions, and if a decision's not made right, I guarantee you the responsibility of that's going to fall back on the shoulders of this board. So I disagree with that assessment on that.
Commissioner, let me say this. I believe what Mr. Barker is proposing at the end of that would hopefully give you the assurances you need. Give me a chance to get up to speed on what the pending litigation is. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. You just hired a firm to handle some pending litigation on this, and in deference to them, I think it'd be best not to go into more comment. But I assure you, I'll be by to your office. We'll sit down. We'll talk to it. If I can't answer your questions on...
Listen, he's conflicted on this very issue, and he's going to run to the commissioners and tell them what they should do. Hey, look, before he worked for the county and he was our temporary attorney, look at Clay's suits and his dirty shoes. Now go look at what he wears and drives. Things that make you go,
What's going on, or for anybody else on this board, I'll do my best to get you those answers so that you are comfortable. I want this board to be very comfortable with everything that gets approved by this county, but I also want to talk to you about the scope and the process of what a moratorium could or couldn't look like, so we know exactly what we're targeting when we do this, so that we don't subject the county to unnecessary challenge or litigation that gets us drawn into issues that you're not trying to do, which is just protect the board and the county. So give me that opportunity, and by the next meeting, we'll have some guidance for you, I can promise you.
And another motive for what I just said was to, as was stated earlier, I don't want to be sitting here for 8 or 9 months waiting on the results. So it's got to be quick.
Well, guess what? You didn't have to wait for 8 or 9 months. You're going to end up waiting 2 years. So you didn't have to wait that long. You had to wait more than twice that. And I've been waiting for 15 years, so giddy up, Boots.
If you know me, Commissioner, I don't drag my heels on things if you ask me to do them.
You know me, Commissioner. I don't drag my heels on things if you ask me to do them. Bullshit.
Mr. Atkinson, due to the pending litigation, is it your opinion that we should wait till you've had a chance to look at this and advise us before we vote on it today?
So, based on as I understand the motion, and I believe that even as temporary under the way my retainer is with the county, I don't believe I actually have spending authority, so I'm going to have to work with the county for the procurement process. I would have politely come up here to defer that ability just to make the hire on my own based on that, and based on that fact without consulting with litigation counsel on this. As it is now, I believe, because we're going to have to look at a public procurement, bring things back to you to make this happen, that's going to give me ample time to do it. And if I come back to you and say, guys, this is all we're going to be able to do because of the litigation, that's fine. But as I broadly understand the request, I think this goes beyond any one item of litigation. So I think you're fine approving it. If it then becomes an issue that may have to fold into litigation, that's something I can bring Coppins Monroe back, ask for an executive session, and have that discussion in more detail. But as of tonight, because you're not actually taking action to do that other than to set staff on the course, I think you're fine tonight.
Any further commissioner comments?
My motion stands.
Motion stands. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
You can't hear Larry.
Got a motion second on the floor. I'm looking in the room for public comment. So let's, okay, Mr. Coast.
Now watch who speaks out.
A lot of controversy and a lot of allegations about the mishandling of driftwood and sandesta. And from what I'm understanding is Mr. Barker and Mr. Cormitt, they recognize there's a problem. And what we're trying to do is call a moratorium to keep from exasperating the problem, to keep from compounding the problem.
A couple of meetings and Dan Cosin has the whole damn thing figured out. Y'all need to stop and figure out what you're doing, but they don't do that. In fact, the county engineers apply for permits and stuff to knowingly break the standards. When this is all in question, millions of dollars are being spent on this to cover it up. And they should be holding the developer responsible, because they'll fix it. We just won't tell them they broke it. And the reason is the county's breaking that standard on their own land too, and because they own land in the DRI and they're 0% compliant. Go ahead, Dan, go get them.
Please correct me, sir. Are you simply saying we need to call a timeout to find out if we're continuing to do more damage?
With all due respect, Mr. Cosin, at this point in time, you're supposed to direct your questions to the chairman.
My first meeting, my bad.
So ask the question again.
Is Mr. McCormick saying, we understand there's a problem. We need to have a moratorium or call a timeout on future development until we can get a handle on fixing this problem. I think what he's trying to say is to keep from compounding the problem and making it worse and worse and worse. Let's call a timeout and try and figure out a way to fix the problem. We're not looking right now for blame or pointing fingers. It appears as though they're just trying to fix a problem that's been going on for a long time.
May I answer his question? Yes, just a timeout, but also I'm pulling back a little bit right now till I have the conversation with Mr. Atkinson.
Okay.
I may get some answers there.
Thank you for your boldness. This is overdue.
He's going to get talked out of it. He's getting shook off.
Thank you, sir.
But it was added to the motion.
Is there any procedure in which we could declare an emergency?
Hell, yeah, just vote 8909's in non-compliance. In y'all's opinion, boom, everything stops. That ordinance is already on the books. You don't have to notify people, hey, you broke the law. You don't call people up the day before your DUI.
The answer is probably not. Now, if you had a true health and public safety, a true imminent harm to the public, we'd be having a separate issue. But even then, I'm going to call back to what Ms. Noy started with. The fact it's not noticed on the agenda, you could do it before you'd ever have another meeting. Somebody could challenge, and we'd be tied up in court just on a notice issue. So I don't want us to trip over our own toes on an issue where it simply is noticed. So regrettably, I don't believe you're at that stage tonight for what I want.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
You absolutely could have declared an emergency and issued a stop work order on the Sandestin DRI because you have competent adopted proof from your own expert and confirmation by the Florida Board of Engineers and letters from the state saying that you're using the wrong standard and the developer's not in compliance. That law's already on the books, gentlemen. It's crazy to think that you need to notice people that they're about to break the law for the last 20 years. Look, just issue the violation. The ordinance is already there.
Ms. Johns, I'm going to recognize Ms. Donna Johns first.
Donna Johns. If I'm not mistaken, the first part of this, it began with wanting an investigation, which I think is a great idea to go ahead and do the investigation. That's separate from the stopping the progress or development, correct? Mm-hmm. So,
now, Donna said she was going to take the bull by the horns when we put her in office on this issue, and she's still sitting at the back of the bus, not participating very well. Donna, You better be watching this video. Ain't nothing happened since you was standing in the audience.
So can we just go ahead and say yes to the investigation instead of kicking this ball down the road all the time? Let's go ahead and give them a reasonable amount of time to do it, even though there may have been an investigation in the past. A lot of us don't know what that said, and apparently there wasn't much done with it. So maybe if we do one now, we can actually take the information we get and make some moves in the right direction. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
That's the motion. That's the motion. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Come right ahead.
John Howard, HOWARD. I appreciate this is a very confusing topic. I've attended those meetings. I've read the reports, and it is very confusing. Instead of an investigation, I'd recommend to step back one moment and have a confirmation of exactly what are the rules. There are state requirements for water quality. And if they're documented in front of you that everybody's agreeing, that's the standard that it goes a bit. An investigation is separate. Investigation is still a comparison. How are those standards being met? One of the items that was stated when that was being presented by the engineer is, well, we don't necessarily have to follow that. We have mitigated some of those standards. I believe that was an incorrect statement. A local issue in the court does not mitigate state requirements for water quality. So I don't think it would take a couple months, but just something that might be very easy to have a documentation that all the commissioners would agree, this is our standard. Now, separately, if the standard is being met, that's another very important question. But that doesn't require anything except you say, yep, this is the standard. Finally, all agree on one piece of paper that we will abide by this standard, because it still seems to be real.
But we've already done this since 1984. The county, the courts, and the developer agreed what the standard is. And then the county broke the rules again, and since 2005 to 2007, the planning department, the engineers, and certain county commissioners and staff have been covering it up. Bottom line.
Really wishy-washy, and I've been at several of these meetings over the last couple of years, and I appreciate the position you're in. That's rough. But in order to know that you don't qualify, you first have to measure it. And once you measure it, then you can determine if you're outside it. Once you determine if you're outside it, you can put in corrective answers to get back to that from an engineering standpoint. But you first must have a baseline of what is acceptable to the standards that you will follow. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Any more public comment from the room? Yes, ma'am. Come right ahead.
Hi, I'm Tabitha Howard, HOWARD. I too live in the Driftwood Sandestin area, and I think that an investigation is necessary. I witnessed lots of flooding all the time, and it's ridiculous. I've even had to drive people because they couldn't get into their homes because the water was standing too high. And I just agree with everyone that we do the investigation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more public comment from the room? Seeing none, I'm seeing 3 on Zoom.
Now listen to what I tell them, exactly what the law is.
Hello, Alan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll address you, Chair, and I'll let you decide if you want to answer or pass it. I'd like to remind you of this. The first moratorium in Sandestin was issued one in 2005 and another pause before. Pending litigation does not stop you from issuing a moratorium. I'll remind you what the law says. I think you've all admitted it's a DRI. But the statute says this. The local government issuing a development order is primarily responsible for monitoring the development and enforcing the provisions of the development order. Local government shall not issue any permits or approvals or provide any extensions of services if the developer fails to act in substantial.
We have provided all of that to people without fault since this meeting.
Compliance with the development order. Listen, issuing permits for hundreds and hundreds of homes, think about this. First moratorium was in 2005, 16 years ago. In 2009, a special magistrate made a recommendation It took till 2019 in February to present that to the board. Your staff should present to Commissioner Barker, their chairman, and all of you, a copy of Mr. Harper's 2015 report just on driftwood and those very questions. There's a separate first report just on driftwood, exactly the scope. Thirdly, I would invite you to bring Harper up and ask him in public again. You paid him to simply answer you. He was your expert, and I want to remind you last week, you're trying to find out an answer to something that only your engineer agrees with, and some people on the staff have documents say they know it. Let's put on the record, these are not my words. This is who agrees with Dr. Harper's standard that you're following none of it. The state BCA agreed with it. They brought engineers at a hearing and lawyers and the board, and they had an 84 settlement agreement. You, the county, agreed with it in 1984. You agreed with it at a special master's hearing. That's what the state presented. The special master had you hire somebody. You hired them. You hired somebody, the best person in the state. You have both his reports. You still kept building. You still kept issuing permits. You've got the experts. Follow the law, not with, and Clay already said he was conflicted on Sandestin. Now he's going to tell y'all who to hire? Come on. Call that guy up here you paid and ask him the questions. Let's get down to it. Somebody's lying, and Commissioner McCormick's right, Chairman. You can't just keep issuing permits. That law says you're not allowed to. You can't do it. You can't keep damaging the bay. 16 years, you got to do
thank you for your call, bud. Next call, Mr. Trigger.
Thank you for your call, bud. Scott's my buddy, and we're all tied in, and yeehaw, and Sandestin goes on, and big hotels, and pigs in the bay, and guess who else is there to tell them once again, like deja vu, or hell, in Walton County it must be Vuja Day. Here comes Fred Tricker.
Can you hear me? Mr. Fred.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. To me, this is a very straightforward issue. And the question is whether the 6.7 inch standard applies or the half inch standard. And I have reviewed a lot of the documentation about everything. I'm not an expert in this field. I haven't seen anything to refute the 6.7 inch standard. I've never seen anything that changed it. I met with the county attorney and the county administrator last April and asked if they could produce anything in writing that refuted that. They couldn't. So to me, it's really clear.
Now, Fred just said the county administrator and the attorney, Sidney and Larry, none of them flinched or looked at each other like, what's he talking about? Because their body language knows that everything Fred just said, they don't have any documents that prove what Mac claims. That it's just a lie. Look, Stan's nervous. Look, he's ready to go back under that bridge he grew up under. Sydney's quitting. She don't care. Dee Dee's not far from being fired, and Larry's out of there. Tony doesn't want to talk about it, but Fred's on him.
The question that Commissioner Barker is asking is a very fair question. It's a good question. What is the standard? I'm not a lawyer. Dr. Harper said that 6.7 inches was the standard, but he's not a lawyer, so you need a legal opinion, and then once you get that behind you, then you can address all these other issues. Yeah, to me, it's really clear, and I think it's a very, very good thing to be doing. And just for clarification, what we're asking for here in the resolution has nothing to do with what the potential fix is, right?
I think
go ahead, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. You answer that.
I think we have to identify if there is an issue first. If we identify it, then we'll address whatever fix needs to be after we identify if there is a problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand that. Sounds good. I appreciate what you're doing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fred.
Thank you.
All right. Our last Zoom caller, Miss Suzanne. Can you hear me, Miss Suzanne?
Suzanne nails it. You paid him, didn't like the results, didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. Look, every one of them knows it. Look at Trey's face. Look at Larry's. Sydney's staring at the floor. Danny's looking down like, oh my God. Tony's scratching his head, wondering, he's looking for some Rogaine. And Boots is over there. He's trying to squeeze out something. Nobody is happy that it's this clear to Suzanne. Go ahead, Suzanne.
It took so long to get it, Tony. It's because the county would not cooperate with him. Now, I've met with Dr. Harper. Dr. Harper could not get cooperation on the items he needed from the county. So my suggestion would be that y'all really go back and understand Dr. Harper's report. I also think that y'all are throwing, I think your county engineer, Greg Graham, I think he's done exactly what he's supposed to do by the county. I think there's a possibility his license is going to be in jeopardy. I think there are a lot of emails where he's been told to do stuff, which whether he wanted to do it or not, I don't know. But I think y'all have to go back to the study that you spent a fortune on. It was your person, you picked him, you hired him. And when y'all didn't like what he said, y'all went, oh, we're going to ignore Dr. Harper's thing. We're just going to go on and do it the way we want to. It's time that stopped. And Mike, I think you ought to ask for a meeting with Dr. Harper. I think you ought to go sit down with him, you and Booth, understand exactly what his problems were in getting the report in a timely manner. Because it's easy for the commissioners that didn't want to approve his report and didn't want to follow it. It's easy for them to sit up there and say, oh, he didn't do it in a timely manner, but that is not the case. So I think all y'all need to get totally up to speed by people who are telling you the truth and not half-truths.
Can you believe a county commission that has sat on a problem since 2007 doesn't want to accept a PhD's findings because he didn't do it in a timely manner? You watch that movie, Full Metal Jacket, who said, you got to be shitting me, pal. But you can't make this shit up. Go ahead, commissioners.
Thank you.
Any comment, Ms. Suzanne? Got a motion? Yes, sir.
Small comment, and I'll sit back. I am just requesting a legal stand-in for where we at legal-wise. As far as having another individual, or Mr. Harper, or anybody giving me their opinion on what we should do. Got enough opinions. I'm just requesting, for me, some sort of legal opinion on this thing.
Well, who did that legal opinion end up coming from? Clay? Shit.
We got a motion and a second on the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I think that I agree with Ms. Harris. I think that everybody needs to sit down with Dr. Harper and go over everything with him. And I also agree with Mr. McCormick that we need a legal opinion, and then we can decide if we want another study or not. But I have no problem with sitting down with Dr. Harper, and I don't think any of the other commissioners would either.
Right. Any further comment from commissioners? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second on the floor. We've already heard public comment. I'll entertain a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Nay.
1 nay.
So everybody voted to get this thing investigated and to interview Harper. And guess what? Clay took over and it did not happen. Keep watching just a little bit more.
All right. I've had an add-on. The Phoenix Springs Little League needs an ice machine for 3,800 room. Any other public comment going to Zoom?
Got two.
We got two waiting on Zoom. Alan, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things. No matter what y'all do on that standard or anything, just remember this. The ordinance says you will not direct curb water into pipes, directing it directly into the tank. Whether or not whatever standard everybody
I'm sitting there telling them that they're direct piping in water into the bay no matter what the standard is, and the ordinance forbids it. Now watch what they do. I'm sitting there telling them they're 100% breaking the ordinance is what I'm telling them.
So if we want to issue permits and pretend they're not there, that's fine. Secondly, you all are getting these emails. And if y'all look to your right, most of your problems are sitting in the chair to your right between Dee and you guys. It's time to do an investigation about these emails. This is a bunch of garbage on what just happened and what's about to happen. And I hope that y'all hear us out there. I know Commissioner McCormick and Barker are trying to get it, and Danny just wants to be done with it. Tony knows what Harper said. This just ain't that hard. And remember this too. It's really this simple, and some of you weren't there, and I'm not repeating it to banter those who. I just want to make sure you have the information. When my lawsuit was settled, and we can talk about that lawsuit because it was settled in 2016, I had to prove that my lot met a standard. I demonstrated it. Y'all settled that lawsuit based on that was the standard. It was never in question whether what the standard was. It was just whether somebody was meeting it or not, and y'all were letting them. So somehow between 2016 and now, we don't know what the standard is, even though we had Harper's report in 15. That's why y'all settled it. It was that clear. The conclusion is one paragraph. It starts out something like, there is no doubt. And I ran out of time earlier. The Florida Board of Professional Engineers agreed with me that the county was using the wrong standard. That is the standard in the state for all standards. And your lawyer would not have recommended, and neither would the lawyer have recommended for the insurance company, that state insurance company thing that y'all have. That lawyer wouldn't have recommended y'all peel out 7 figures of money if the standard had been wrong that I claimed. I claimed the same standard in that lawsuit. I mean, the folly of this is 16 years of reactive enforcement where the law just didn't mean anything just because everybody was mad at me.
Amen.
You know, I'm not asking for more friends. Don't need any. I'm sure there's not 5 of you out there who want to be my friend. That's cool with me. I'm eating some pizza. Anyway. But look, let's get on with this. I'm tired of this dance, and y'all don't want to be my partner.
Alan, thank you for your comment, ma'am. Next caller, Miss Morano. How you doing, Miss Morano?
Okay, thank you. Last question. Commissioner Nick, it's Connector Road at Duke Lakes Elementary. And my question is, does the county not have a survey